Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. It's been a long time to another Binary Ninja live stream. Hopefully my setup still works. I'm a little scruffy, a little kind of still putting my office back together after being out of the office, but we have a really good set of stuff to cover. There's a ton of updates to cover this week. So let me see if I can. I'm gonna have to fix this, I think. So y'all shouldn't see Peter yet, but if I update the Hangouts window, hopefully. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. All right, Peter, can you speak?
Hello.
I see you. Oh, there we go. And I think I can hear you. Hopefully the stream can hear you. There we go. Valgrine's on. Can you hear us? Valgrine can you hear me and Peter. We'll see. We get a little bit of stream delay. We'll figure out. But I hear you, Peter. So how are you doing today? Oh no, did I lose you?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, you were lagging a little bit
Yeah,
there.
I got lost for a second.
Hopefully it wasn't on my side. Cool. All right. Well, yeah. So this week, first we're gonna kind of start with a review. We've got I have like just looking at the features that are landing this week or like next week. They're like almost done. It's just like a year's worth of updates in like one release. So we have a whole bunch of stuff. We're only going to cover some of it, I think, this week, and we'll probably be back next week with even more. There's just tons of nifty stuff. If you guys are on the dev branch, you've already probably seen some of them. But first, let's actually just check out the. Assuming my mouse is on the right computer, let's check out. There we are. And look at the API repo, and let's just take a look at everything that has happened essentially. Features that are closed. Let's start with since it's actually been it's been almost a month since we streamed. Yes, Valgrind knows sidebars. Certainly, that's going to be one of the biggest ones. And so let's see what is today's date? Today's July 30th. All right. So is there anything? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything because I was off on vacation for a little while. So let's take a look at the stuff. I think this hit the last live stream, right? I don't remember if I did that on the last live stream or not, but the copy selection offsets has a bunch of other options into like segments and sections and file offset, and it's actually been a kind of common feature. It's one of the little things that I worked on. If it's easy to do, it's up my alley. Peter, you remember? So I'm looking through the list now, but do you remember anything interesting good? Like not from this week, but from like prior to this week. I'm trying to think of other stuff that's landed.
Not off the top of my head. A bunch of good stuff is landing this week, and well,
yeah,
landed this week and
coming next week.
Next week.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of it was kind of like just about everybody in the company that's working on something has like a feature that's landing this week or next week. It feels like a large percentage of the team has been working on stuff that's all about to hit. So it's pretty great. Part of that's the couple weeks before then not having as many. That's part of it because people are all working on relatively large things. So first, the obvious one, as Valgrind already pointed out, sidebars are in. And so this was this is one of the big components of the 3.0 UI refactor. Oh, I don't think I have our faces on. Let me see. Yeah, look, I can turn Peter and I's faces on, I think. Oh no. Oh wait. Yeah, I gotta have Peter's face. Oh, I think I have to update all the windows. I need to do better regular expressions with. Did that do it? It's still not turning on. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They don't need to see our face. That's fine. And we got chat here too. I'll leave that off for now. Let's just leave our audio and the glorious full screen video for now. Oh wait a minute, what is this? Oh, I think I found your video, Peter. Let me see. Is that you? No, I don't know what that is. That's all right. Anyway, so I talk too much in stream, so Peter, why don't you describe sort of, your kind of thoughts about the UI refactor and what this, this first big step is.
Sure. Yeah. So, uh, so for since we came out with the dock widgets, uh, we weren't really satisfied with it, and it worked for a while until we wanted to really make a lot of new um, dock widgets, a lot of new things.
It started to get a little too
Um,
busy. There's like so many of them, and just
yeah,
kind of managing them is a headache.
yeah. And so instead of having this idea that we're gonna find the optimal place for all of these things, and um, the idea with this UI refactor is, and I don't know if it's okay. Never mind. Sorry. What I'm seeing on my side is different than what's showing. Um, but
It should be showing the same thing. Your video should be.
it's just sliced off on the side. But anyway, um, so the idea with the sidebar is to make the UI in some sense more modal, so that we can um, there's different modes that you're in when you're reverse engineering. So you may be searching. That's one type of mode.
Yeah.
You may be looking for a particular function. That's another mode. You may be reversing a single function, and that's yet another mode. You may be debugging, or searching for strings, or applying types. And all of these things kind of have a different set of
Maybe related UI elements, right? Not just like
right,
one window, but a couple maybe.
right. So the idea with the sidebar is to kind of like concretize some of those workflows into like a a sidebar uh, into this into this sidebar. So we're going to have a debugger uh, sidebar
Yeah.
item, and when you're debugging, you really don't need to like look at a list of strings, or you really don't want to know like you know the list of all the functions,
Right, because you're in a
like
function right
the
now. Like,
symbols.
yeah.
Right, you only really care about what function you're in and maybe the stack, right? So
Yeah.
so that's the concept behind why we wanted to go with more of a sidebar. In some ways it's less flexible, and that's a good thing,
Yeah.
because it means the end user doesn't have to
Fiddle.
manage that flexibility.
Yeah.
Oh, let me move all these dock widgets around every time I want to like change the mode that I'm operating
I did
under.
add like the save layout feature, right, which helped a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
you could go through and you could like come up with certain layouts and save them, but even that was just really fiddly, and also like the amount of UI testing that has to go into like every possible weird little layout. It's both easier to maintain and I think an actual more pleasant experience when there's a couple of the kind of straightforward ways. Which is not to say we want to get
Yeah,
rid of flexibility. There's definitely a lot of plans for ways that we can customize this and some
yeah,
split views and other things that are kind of going to come out of it. But I guess this is probably the first most obvious big
right.
piece of the UI refactor.
And we're adding more flexibility in other areas while taking away flexibility in some other areas.
Yeah,
So, like you said, we're going to be adding a split view soon. That's probably one of the next big things Rusty's going to work on. And that that split view is going to allow you to do side by side disassembly and high level IL side by
Yeah,
side.
it's the sort of
Um,
behavior that the reflection view, right? The reflection dock widget does right now, right? Where like
right.
I can do it this way, but
But
even this is
bit
kind of a
more
little awkward.
flexible
Yeah,
than the dock widget, as it'll be able to show linear. Um, it'll be able to show some of the other, like I think we'll still allow types to be shown in one of those. And so you could
hmm
have like types open in one side in the
like a bigger pane, not just
the bigger pane,
the smaller
right?
one here.
And then you have, you can be showing strings in your sidebar if you want.
Yeah, I
And
actually haven't had one person ask me like, oh, why can I do types in the sidebar and in the main view? And I think that's exactly the answer, right? Is that is part of that a little bit of flexibility because this is meant to be a bigger split view for like lots and lots of like large lists, whereas
mhm,
the side one is a little bit more concise for like narrowly scoped to like something you're looking at like right now.
yeah. Yeah, and we've had some suggestion from like Dustin, like, hey, why don't we just show the types that are relevant to the function in the sidebar?
Yeah,
And that
I really
that
like that idea.
that's a really good idea. Like we'll probably add like an option to only, and that might even be the default option. It's like just show the relevant
I
types.
think there's an argument for it. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. It previously when we had types, it wasn't like it was just there was no context available to be able to do that. But
because it
now
was
we
a
have like a
separate view. But right now, it's
right.
something you can have up at the same time. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, so let's talk real quick about some of the new UI elements that have come out. Obviously, like the side panel with the icons is the most obvious piece that comes in. But there's also a lot of little, and so a couple of workflows that enables like that you can leave types up while you're reversing, right? So the fact that I can be in my hello IL and see make a change to a type and see it kind of live is really nice. But each of these have some new features too. So for example, like the symbol list always had a search, and it was always like this really smart like searching where you could just type keywords. But like a lot of people literally didn't even know that because it hid itself by default. And so that was kind of a poor design decision, and we fixed that with this new one where it's just always there. Like it's obvious you have a search, and it doesn't even take any real extra space. We've also there was always a number of really useful features in the right click menu, and now there's the hamburger menu here to try to make that a little bit more discoverable. Like hey, there's a number of features, things you can turn on and off for that, and that's going to be kind of a design we're going to maintain. So you can see it over here. There's a couple of menu options and icons for each of these panels that'll probably kind of happen. So types view this is the same as the right click context menu, create new structure, you type new union. This one's a little bit different though. This one's the user auto filter behavior, which used to be, which actually probably still is in the bigger type view. There is oh no, actually, yeah, he did actually port it over here as well. Yeah, so this just turns on and off the sort of system auto types. So if you only want to see the types that you yourself have created as you're looking through the function, then you can just toggle that to see things a little bit more easily, which is kind of
Yeah, I
nice.
think those are really the same widget. And they're
Yeah,
just
one's wider
instantiated
basically. Yeah,
differently.
in the refactor that makes sense. So that's symbols, that's types, and then you literally have to if you got the update like earlier in the day, you got this stuff. Middle of the day, you got the Control B hotkey to like open and close it, which is really nice for if you're used to Visual Studio Code. But then just like an hour ago, the other release, like I think is it 19 is the build number? Yeah, 2919 came out with the variable view too, and this is something else that we've teased a little bit on stream. Um, yeah, so Cyberg says they still like having a full types view. Like if you're just doing a lot of big type stuff, you could do that, but you also have this new way to do them both at the same time, which I
Yeah.
think makes a lot of sense. Um, yep, exactly, background. Yeah, the value reference. Like if you've got a plugin for uh, viewing other things that you want to like have up at the same time, it's a little bit easier with that kind of a view. So this is the variable view, which contains and he did there we go. So it does also just do the strings, which is nice. We were talking about how to because strings can really take up a lot of width, and so instead of having like a name for the variable and the type,
Yeah, so
it's a
this just
string. Yeah.
landed like a couple hours ago.
Yep. Very very fresh off the presses, and this is one of the two big things that our intern John, who's unfortunately going back to school after next week, but thankfully I think he's going to wrap up this really nice UI features that he's been working on. So
Yeah, but we're gonna keep him
we'll
on
keep
as
him
a
around. We'll keep
contractor,
him
so
around. Yeah, but he'll be a little
get some
less productive. He'll have
yeah.
to be focusing on schoolwork too, but he'll still be around. So there are enhancements already. We've been talking about ways to continue to improve this.
Yeah.
Tooltips for like what are the letters is a common question we get asked, and to make it a little kind of more obvious what some of those stuff are. But and then the other one he's working on is the stack view. So it's been another major feature that a lot of people have requested, and that's also probably going to live over here, or maybe we're still figuring out, is that variables and stack view together, or is it a separate thing? Like there's a lot of possibilities there. But what is the latest? Is the plan to have it as a separate icon here, like stack view, or do you think it'll be end up kind of a split?
So I haven't decided yet. It probably, at least at first, would just be a separate sidebar.
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's not permanent. Whatever we do, these are still really early. I'm curious if the chat has opinions too. Would you rather see like kind of a split? If you think about like VS Code, and again, we shamelessly are inspired by a lot of their design decisions. We really like a lot of the choices they make. I don't know why this. Please go away. Let me close this window. Close window. Oh, Alt F4. Control W doesn't do what I thought. So the way that they have these kind of splitters here, right? So they have these separate like sort of subpanels or panes, or I don't know. We've got to figure out kind of the language of them. So they have the icons for the sidebar, but then these sub items, and that's kind of what we're thinking we might do for some of these views. So like maybe we could have stack that is variables up top and stack at the bottom, but then you're a little busy because you've got variables, stack, and cross
Yeah, a
references.
huge list doesn't make very good use of the vertical real estate.
Yeah, so just being able to switch to a different one for that is probably we'll see. Again, it's one of those things we're gonna experiment. I also have a very large font I've cranked up just for the stream right now, so it makes some of this a little more cramped than you'll see on your machines. I do expect it is interesting. I feel like you have a little more incentive to make the sidebar wider than the old like symbol list when it was just that, and the like even though it was the same kind of
there's
view,
so much, it's so much more dense, so much more
there's more stuff like
information is
type
available.
view, and like tends to be a little bit wider. Excuse me. And I feel like, and that's really pretty fine, because if you look in like my right pane, even with this large font, very few lines actually are going to go past, right? Like it's relatively a lot of functions. You don't need most of that. This is all dead real estate here.
Yeah, but when we add in secondary pane, it might be
Right.
more.
Well, and again, with a smaller font or higher resolution, I think I'm just running at like 1080p on this one. I know a lot of people that are using higher resolution displays. And again, this is also
most people
not standard. Yeah, exactly. So I just do it for the stream because it's a little bit easier to make sure it's more accessible. But you definitely get more screen real estate for most of it. So again, these are all on dev right now. The UI refactor, the variable view. What's not yet on dev, there's a couple of things that are also like really close to landing, and some of them might be coming in as early as next week. Would include the feature formerly known as analysis passes. Well, we're still baking, I think, a little bit. Do you want to talk about the name that I think we're coming up with, or do you want to say it? All right, I like the name, so I want to share. So the name we're going with is workflows, and it's a little bit overloaded, right? So let me first sort of explain the rationale behind it and why we would call like a feature of Binary Ninja workflows specifically when you kind of use that word generically too. So the idea is that this started from, let's step back and talk about, we started at analysis passes. And the idea behind analysis passes was our internal like decompilation, all the analysis we do, it would be really, really cool if that was more modular and pluggable. So I want to be able to rewrite the IL. That blog post you wrote, Peter, about
Yep.
deobfuscating opaque predicates, right? Like at the time, you just patched all the jumps to make them either
Yep.
non-conditional jump or a NOP or whatever, and like that works. It's fine. Like it got you what you wanted there, but it would have been way cleaner just to be able to say, hey, no, actually rewrite the IL and now display me the stuff. You don't have to patch the original file and rely on that, and you can do a lot more with that. So it's been
Mhm.
like this major powerful feature we've had kind of in the back of our head like literally for years. I think since like relatively early on, we've been wanting this thing. And Brian, one of our developers, has been working on it for at least 4 or 5 months now. I think. I mean, he's been kind of, and it's a
Yeah,
massive,
it's been a
massive
while.
undertaking. And so I'm honestly happy it's taken him like as little as time as it has. I feel like. So the idea is that he's essentially ripping out every bit of analysis that Binary Ninja does right now, and there's a lot, and turning it into the kind of this graph, right? And the graph connects these nodes, which are actions.
Composable
Yeah,
nodes
and then
of
you can rewire, right? Like they're kind of wired up in a particular way. They all take this context, so and the crazy thing is to me, like lifting the low level IL is actually just one node, and there's like 40 in the current graph. So you think about like, and there's actually a ton that goes into lifting low level IL, right? That alone is a massive step. But there's tail call analysis, there's function identification, which there's several components there. Like there's a lot of these pieces. Some of them are multi-threaded and parallelized, and some of them are single-threaded. There's tons of this behavior. And if you've seen our debug reports, right? So if you're looking at a function, one of the things that you could do with our high-level IL is you can actually see how, I think I have the debug, yeah. So you can actually see how our high-level IL translation happens. So this is literally like all these like kind of steps that happen internally to high-level IL from medium-level IL, and you can see every bit of optimization pass and how it kind of creates this. But that high-level IL is literally just one activity in this broader workflow system that we're abstracting all of our analysis into. And so the idea is that even though this thing actually has all these different kind of internal steps, it is just one piece of a broader set of analysis. And the reason for workflows are that as Brian was kind of implementing this, and we were talking about names and analysis passes or transformation passes, we debated a lot of choices. He said, I think this is more than just how we do analysis. This is about how like you would approach like anything you would do in Binary Ninja, which is like really true. So that if you want to open up a firmware file, you would probably want to do different things than if you want to open up a potential piece of malware, which is different than what you would want to do if you're opening up an Objective-C binary. And right now, like all analysis tools out there, us included, have like options when you open a file. You can like turn on and off some checkboxes and kind of how you would analyze this, something. So with Binary Ninja, you control shift click and you get, open with options. And you can turn it on and off like specific features of the product or specific analyses. Like you can say like I want to turn off tail call analysis. Like just turn that off. And so there's a setting, and it's just kind of like a ephemeral setting. You change that, and then when I open the file, that's not going to happen. Or there's different behaviors that you can control with these settings. But really, workflows is a much more powerful, bigger feature than that. So a good example is Objective C, which actually is already a working workflow that Brian's prototyped. It needs a little bit of work, I think, before it's public. But the idea is that when you open up a binary, uh, if you happen to notice or you know that it's an Objective-C binary, you might want to, for example, parse out some of the special structures that exist as metadata in the file, right? And so you've actually got extra debug information in there. And same with Go or something like that, right? Like you'd want to be able to say, oh, hey, actually, I've got this extra debug information. Let's do something special with that. So I'm going to extract that information early, and then I'm going to change when I'm actually doing my, creating functions or whatever. Maybe I've got a list of them, so I can do that. It's actually related to debug info as well, the other new feature that is will fit into this concept of how workflows work. But then also you might want to later on in Objective-C, like when you see a message send API call, it's kind of annoying when you're decompiling it because the actual function you care about is just the string being passed to a message send, and that's a dispatch function, which is going to call basically a virtual method on a class using that string as the name of the function that you want to call. And we'd really like to be able to lift that call as it looked in source code as a call to the method, right? It's way, way prettier, cleaner, and you can get cross references better, as opposed to just like annotating it kind of after the fact. You want to like rewrite the whole layout, and that's working. That was one of the kind of motivating use cases. So there is
Yeah, but and it's not just that either. So like the thing about workflows is they're like self-configurable essentially. So like you can if you identify like some code pattern that you need to analyze, um, you can say like you can have the pass itself say, oh, this or sorry, the workflow
yeah, we're
itself
still working on the language ourselves.
identify
Yeah.
that this Objective C, this is Objective C. So I also need to enable the CF string, data renderers. So those show up properly as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's where I think workflows makes a lot of sense than just analysis passes. Is it's this is composability and the idea that things can sort of self-assemble and they're all helping you accomplish a higher level workflow better. Again,
Mhm.
so like think of whatever when you sit down at a reverse engineering tool, you have like a task at mind. It's uh, is this a piece of malware, or what's the command and control for this malware, or are there any vulnerabilities in this? But like you have a goal in mind, and the different goals you've got are going to determine different things that you would do with your tool. And right now, the tools tend to be more up to you to like figure out how to tweak and tune these things, or build your own plugins and whatnot. And we really like this idea of having sort of different paths through the forest that we're already kind of identifying and calling out. And again, you can like rewire this yourself. That's the really cool thing. So one of the demos that Brian shows off, and we'll hopefully show it maybe at the next live stream. He can visualize all this, which in itself is super interesting. Like if you want like a master class in how to build a decompiler, like between the debugger port and our flow graph of like all our analysis, like it's a really handy. We sort of talked internally like does this help somebody build a competitor to us? Are we worried about like somebody else like using this? And I think there's it doesn't yes it can help that, but we got a lot of analysis under the hood that I'm not super worried about. That immediately just being like trivial to reproduce just because you can see all the different types of analysis we can do. And I think the benefits just are so powerful. Like not only in third parties can instrument this too, right? So you could take our default workflow analysis and then you could say, actually, I want to remove this node and I want to replace it with my code. So you could actually have your external plugin replace some internal core analysis that Binary Ninja is doing. Um, some of the activities that are in the analysis flow you can't pull out or replace very easily right now, just because it's still kind of a work in progress. But that is also one of the demos that Brian's got. Is he actually took out our tail call analysis in particular, same code, built it as a plugin, and he says take the default workflow, copy it, remove this node, replace it with this other node from this separate binary file that's a plugin that gets loaded in, and then rerun the analysis. And our unit tests pass, right? So you can verify that yes, like this workflow can succeed, but running now the code through essentially an external plugin. So it's just super neat how composable and modifiable and introspectable. It even helps us like understand how our stuff works. Like I don't think anybody in the company could have actually sat down at a whiteboard and drawn out like this is what all of the analysis that happens when you open a binary. Like no single person could do that. It's been far more complicated. I think there's a couple people who could come close, and now we actually have a flow graph, like a picture that can get generated by
Yeah.
the system, and it shows you what it is.
So someone says that this sounds very close to solving the function uninlining thing as well. And yeah, that's
That is
completely
exactly,
correct.
and it's
Like
literally one of the tests. I think that's one of the next
yeah.
exact examples that Brian's working on, both function inline, and it goes both ways. You might actually want to do both, either inlining or uninlining both. Outlining, I guess, is
Yeah,
the term that's
the
used.
other thing we're hoping to do with this is a long-term feature is IL inlining. So mark a you could go to any function and mark it as inline this IL whenever you see it. It might only happen for like functions that have no calls in them or something like that,
Yeah.
but might only be available for them. But it would allow you to essentially get the data flow um, across the call boundary, which helps out a lot of analysis when you don't have to do interprocedural um,
Yeah, turning on interprocedural in general
data
is
flow.
impossible because it just blows up too quickly. But for like some functions that are sort of like leaf nodes or smaller or contained, or you could like apply this and do this to,
Yeah,
like you really
there's
can
this
help
one
analysis.
that I always think of when I think of this. Well, there's multiple. One is like alloc A. Um, I believe if we just like just inlined alloc A, any of our issues with some of the uh, problems we come up with when we come across those would be gone. The other one is Thumb has this
Put you
very
back in camera, by the way.
strange construct where they um, for jump table dispatches, you call into a function and you like pass it your jump table. And so in the caller or in the callee, the jump table is completely unbounded, so you don't know where it's going, and actually it's going tons of places. Um, and so that's a really difficult thing to analyze from
If you treat them
uh,
as separate pieces of
if you
data
treat
flow,
them
but
as
if you
separate.
can
But
combine them,
if you just inline the
yeah.
the IL, it's like, oh, I know what that is. That's a jump table, and everything just
So
will just be perfect.
So to answer your question of what else is missing other than UI, not much. That is again one of the very early test cases we expect to have.
Yeah, but the thing is, like I really like what Brian said
Yeah,
is these workflows will will solve all of your problems, but they don't solve any problems.
they solve all of your
Um,
problems except you still have to write the code to solve your
right,
problem, right?
right,
Like yes, it's a system that lets you do anything you want, but like you still have to, do it. And to that point, like you have to choose where in the analysis you're gonna rewrite things, right? Which means are you
yeah,
gonna do it for low level IL or medium level IL, and if your plugin relies on analysis that happens on a later like there is a lot of nuance to it, and so it will not just like instantly solve everything. Um, but I don't know, it still feels a little bit like it will. Like it is,
yeah.
it's gonna be really nice. There's a lot of cool
It's going to
stuff.
make a lot of things simple to do that were much more difficult. They were
That's a really good
more
explanation. Yeah.
invasive.
I think like
They
we literally
were
have tags, on our GitHub issues that say like high effort, medium effort, low effort. Like this literally takes a bunch of things that were high, brings them to medium, and medium brings them to low, essentially.
yeah, make some things possible that
Yeah.
were almost impossible
Yeah.
before. Yeah, so we're excited about it. Let's move on to our next.
All right. I know. So lots of fun stuff there. Let's see. Go back to my list. I think I've got. There's a couple before we get to your thing. I'm trying to think of whatever else we had. There was a couple of generic items that are coming on the way. So stack view we've talked about. Oh, one other thing we haven't mentioned yet is our debugger is being rewritten in C++. And we were both looking at the demo earlier today, and it's like functional and working. There's still some work to go on it, but that'll really help with performance. And there's also a lot of little nice features that are being kind of polished off and added, and new stuff that are coming with it. So if you like using the debugger, that's going to get both faster. It's going to be shipped and enabled by
Yeah,
default, and includes a bunch of other features. And then the type libraries too. So in fact, I think Andrew may even have updated that GitHub issue. There's a whole bunch of other type libraries too. I actually ran across this. One of our users submitted a 32-bit x86 ELF that has some issues with tracking the stack because of the calling convention, and part of it was because there was no type libraries to know what the calls that were being made for some of the imports were, how they handle parameters and whatnot. So the type library improvements should also be like landing first thing next week. And one minor thing that I get to brag about, and then we'll let Peter talk about a much more interesting thing that he worked on. But if you actually look in the plugin manager, one of our kind of outstanding features that we lacked was the ability to let me restart. Was to have a plugin that had subfolders where the code actually lived. And this actually turns out to be kind of annoying if you have like a plugin like Marcus Gastelton's Lighthouse, where he has an IDA plugin, a Binja plugin, and he doesn't want like Python to live in the root of the repo that's just for Binja. That kind of doesn't really make sense. And so the previous workflow for installing that was to clone it into your plugin folder. There was no like way to use the plugin manager, and now there is, and you can actually install Lighthouse. So don't do what I just did. This is like a test copy of it. It's still kind of some of it's under development. But you saw may have seen I went to my settings and changed my plugin manager to a test repo. You technically can, but like I said, I don't recommend it. This points to a fork of the repo now. But Marcus has that and a bunch of other things that he's working on. And this repo does also include some updates, and I think updates on his main repo as well for Qt6. So you've got Lighthouse working there. So if you're a fan of that plugin, which I
Needs
think
more Binja screenshots.
I know, well, I think this is it's an animated. The issue is this is an animated image that shows both,
Right.
but because it's
Yeah, we don't have.
because we don't have animated images anymore, it's there we go. See, it's been. Maybe I should rewrite it and snap it at the right time so we can replace it. But yeah, it's sure it's funny that it's got the IDA screenshot in the visual plugin manager. So that's kind of fun. It's kind of minor. But Peter, why don't you and I'll switch to screen sharing if you want to screen share.
I guess I can screen
Tell me
share.
what you've been working on because I'm excited to talk about this.
Let's see. Well, I think I'll just share my whole screen because
It's just easier if you
sharing
switch
a
around.
window is sometimes awful. All right, can you see that?
No, I think I broke it. Maybe 1 second. Oh, I can change it there. That's nifty. All right, I see your screen. I think we're good.
Okay, so so what I'm working on is kind of an extensive refactor of the Python API. You know, we've not had an extensive refactor of it in terms of changing how things actually work since the product came out. And the product was originally written for Python 2.7, and we're, you know, finally able to like get rid of a ton of cruft that's built up from Python 2.7, and we're
You might want
able
to make your
to.
font a little bit bigger, by the way, it's because it's getting a little fuzzy because of Hangouts.
Okay.
Yeah, so this has been. I mean, there's just I've heard only little bits of it, just kind of from talking and passing as things have come up. But there is there's a lot of changes coming as a part of this. Like it's a massive set of improvements from yeah. I think the Python console does use the Vue font, not the app font. I usually just crank them both on mine. That's actually another relatively recent change, the fact that you can do that.
Yeah. So
We're not sharing your screen yet, by the way. It went away.
You know, oh.
There we go. Yeah, and you might actually want to drag the Python console to the top of the window. I think it tends to be a little bit easier to see. It's not a big deal. It's yeah, either way, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
It's fine.
So so let's just start by showing some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So hang on, my screen is getting a lot of glare. There we go. Let's look at something like current HLIL sub 1. So we've got a a statement here. So this used to be a type. The type of this used to be a HLIL instruction. Now the type is actually a high-level IL var init. So every every IL instruction now has a class which represents it. Um,
And it's true of all the
so
ILs too, not just high, right? But medium
yeah,
and
not
low,
just
and
high,
yeah.
this is medium and low. The reasons for that is one, it was kind of annoying to deal with the
We've all written a lot of if current IL dot operation in
operation.
and a set of like
Yeah,
massively long like operation types.
right. Or let's go to some more interesting, um, some more a bit more interesting code. Um, so something like this, we have current IL 10. It's an assignment. Let's do the dot write. Oh, sorry, dot
Source.
source, and then we have so this is a high level IL add operation, but because we're using classes now, we have these other. This doesn't inherit directly from high level IL instruction. It actually inherits from high level IL dot binary operation. And so
So just all classes of pun not intended of multiple related things. So it's more of a structure
and
to it.
so binary operation inherits uh, from high level IL instruction. Uh, it has the it's easy to see. It's not as easy to see, but we basically have a dot left and a dot right, and basically nothing else on a binary operation. So now you can like see if it's an instance of a binary operation and then go left and then go right.
Yeah, because it used to be you had to
So
check what
rather
was in those
than
classes so that you knew which properties you could then safely query, right? Or check if the
right,
attribute exists, and it was just a little bit janky.
right
And this
now
is
it's
much
like if
cleaner.
that property exists,
Yeah,
you can
if it's an operation, it must have a left and it must have a right. You know that.
right. Um, so that's one of the really cool things. Also, it cleans up the documentation because now we have a you know an actual class called high level IL assign, which has properties on it which we can clearly document rather than like and it can all work with PyDoc and whatever, so we can
Sphinx, yeah.
yeah, so we can go and say exactly what the semantics of the instruction are
Yeah,
instead
right
of
now
having
those
some
are
like
separately documented in the user docs in a separate file that just happens to
yeah,
kind of cluster them by like similarity.
yeah. And if you could keep an eye on the chat,
Yeah, I'm
I
watching it.
don't
You're
have
good.
that
You're good.
out. So um
Ask more questions, chat, so
so
I get to interrupt them.
yeah. So the other thing about this is it's high level IL in particular is now 3 times fast at iterating IL instructions. So for I and BV dot, this operation is 3 times faster than it was before I made these changes. And the reason for that is because we don't previously, because of the way it was done, we would have to like descend the tree completely in order to be able um, to build up that instruction. Now it's done on demand, so we don't actually build the instruction until it's actually touched. So we don't do work that we don't have to. We delay the work until it needs to be done.
And that's especially good because I mean this is like the main way. I mean, even our like training classes that we teach on like writing plugins to automate a lot of this stuff, a lot of it
Yeah.
involves walking on the IL operations, the IL types, and looking for. And so it's going to make all of those use cases faster, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Now it does introduce a a different. It will slow down if you were doing dot source like this operation, querying it over and over and over is now slower because you have to rebuild that instruction every time, and it's not like cached or
Not
anything.
that you would notice
So
really, because yeah,
yeah, but
for a
it's
single
like,
instruction,
but if you are doing this in a script, you you should like
you should
cache
have
it
a copy of it
locally. So
yourself. Yeah,
like that's kind of the trade-off, but it's well worth
it's going
it.
to make
Uh,
all of the normal applications much faster, basically.
right. So in addition to these things, to this, so if we do dot left here and dot var, we've kind of supercharged the variable object. So this variable object is now I call like a live object.
One could say you
Um,
fixed it, I would argue. I think it's much better this way.
so instead of it previously, let me see if I can bring up uh, just a
Yeah, and
second.
so I mean the concept that you mentioned earlier of a live variable was something I had to learn. I've been writing a lot of Python about Ninja and doing it sort of wrong. Because I didn't really kind of understand this. It makes complete sense in hindsight, but with a Python API and a C core, C++ core through a C API, there are times when you do something in Python and you've got an object, and when you make a change to that object, it's not necessarily updating the core. Like you're just changing the Python representation of that. And there's a time where that's intentional. You want that behavior because maybe you're modifying a Python object that you then plan to like save back into some type in the core. Or it depends on the type of object. So that's a fine thing, but it was just really hard to tell as a user like when is it one and when is it the other. And there were times where you might want that to happen. A really early example was function.name. Uh, you want to be able to just set. You want to be able to change the name, but the initial implementation like didn't do that. It would read out the function object to be like, here you go, Python, you got a function object, and you could change the name in the Python variable, but it didn't actually change the name of the core of the actual function, which is generally not the behavior you want. So we kind of wired up like the appropriate setters to actually call into the core and update that function. Um, but uh, that the same thing existed in a lot of other places too. And so that's how I got educated on this topic more in depth, is because I broke variables once trying to make their names settable, because I'm like it's too
Yeah, the
annoying to
type.
change, yeah, or
Yeah,
change
the
a type,
type.
change a types because you have to create a symbol, and it's not
Yeah.
just as easy as just
So
writing it to the
so
property.
yeah, previously, so what a variable is in Binary Ninja in the core is it's completely um, divorced from any function, any binary view. All it is a three tuple of a uh, like a storage location. So like where is it on the stack, or which register is it in? A type and an index. And the index is kind of like this, like almost like this hash essentially, so that we can identify them between reanalyses. Um, so when you to be able to do anything with a variable, you need other context. You need to know what function it's in. Well, I guess that's really the main thing. Like you need to know what function it's in, and then you can like look up things depending on what function it's in. Um, so uh, so we didn't have so we kind of brought over the idea of a variable, but didn't bring over we kind of partially brought it over. Now the way we have it is we have two different types of objects. We actually have a is there yeah. So there is a core variable object, and this is what
Used to
the
be a
core
variable before,
understands
right? Like
is a
that's basically what
variable.
it used to
Like
be.
what's that?
That's what basically a variable used to be in the previous. Like if a current
Yeah,
you kind of got something
roughly,
like that,
roughly.
basically.
We had
Yeah,
a little bit of stuff, but
sugar, but not
it wasn't
much.
great.
Yeah.
Um, so this is the source and the index and storage, like I was talking about. But now this variable object has like a name. Oh, if I can spell name, um, and the name is actually settable.
Yay, that was my feature that I wanted.
Whoa! And it has a type. It's int 32, and we can say that it's a
Dot
uh,
type.
type dot.
No, change. You're changing that name right now.
Oh, right. Dot type is equal to type int for true false.
Can you pass a string too? I know some of those type APIs can take.
No, this one doesn't take that yet. And okay, yeah. So we made that
And
false,
the color went yellow too because it's no
right?
longer
Because it's
low
now
confidence.
a user type.
Yeah.
Um, and what else do we have? Uh, we have like the dead store elimination information. Um, I'm probably gonna hide this from Binary Ninja variable, some of this other stuff.
Hide it from
And
bugging too.
there's some like methods to kind of convert it back and forth between like the internal representation. Um, but yeah, like there's a storage, but like you know can't set it
Yeah, yeah,
because
that's intrinsically
that
part of
would
what
be a
it
different
is. Right,
variable
right. That
if you
makes
did.
sense.
So like before there was like a setter on the storage, and it's like, okay, you could set the
It just
storage.
didn't
What
do
did that
anything
do?
useful. Right. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything. So now like you can't shoot yourself in the foot. Um and same with the other attributes.
Let me ask you a leading question because you mentioned we're going to 3.0. One of the big or Python 3, one of the big changes in Python 3 is type annotations. So does this
Oh
mean
yes.
type annotations
So
are
yeah.
coming?
Absolutely. So all of the entire Binary Ninja API is going to have type annotations. Type annotations help out so much. I've fixed probably 50 different bugs in Binary Ninja just because I added type annotations, and I'm using the linter, and the linter are like I'm using Pyrite um, to do type checking, and it just tells you where all the bugs are.
This
Like
doesn't look right. This type doesn't match.
this this can return none, and you're not checking if it can return none. So it used to be that we would frequently have people report like an issue where it's like none doesn't have the value size or whatever. Um, so those all are going to be bugs now. Like if you find one of those things, that will actually be a bug, because the proper behavior there will be some internal assertion or raising an exception. So like I probably have added 200 different assertions and many different um, uh, raising many different exceptions.
Can you show the type annotations for one of the like binary view or something like that? Because I know there's a couple of different like
Yeah,
styles of type
funny
annotations.
enough, uh, I don't, I haven't finished the type annotations on binary view.
Oh,
But
pretend I asked for a different one then.
let's look. Let's look at high
We'll
level
fix that one
layout.
in post.
So, uh, one of the other things that you'll notice is if you're looking at the API, we use make prodigious use of data classes, and especially frozen data classes, so that people know when a class is not expected to be able to change. And a something like this, if we like yeah, I'm not going to do that. If you look at the API as it currently is, this would be, about 15 lines of code
It's a
or
bunch of
20 lines
separate
of
getters and
code.
setters, which
Yeah.
I added a long time ago. A lot of like,
Yeah,
and
actually, I can.
we initially did that just because we couldn't add PyDoc to properties as easily, and so you would
Yeah.
add a getter and
So
setter. But
that
yeah,
all this code right
yeah,
here
is now 6 lines.
goes away, and I can blow that up. Like all this code goes away, and it becomes, these few lines of
Yeah,
code,
so it's an
right?
IL operation. So the IL operation already gives you the equal, not equal stuff in one place. It's just much better
Mhm.
organized, right? Like this actually has a
Yeah,
structure.
and data classes actually generate, if people aren't familiar with data classes and you write Python, you should really go look up data classes. They're really cool. They essentially create all these dunder methods for you. They would actually create a repr that was just like that. Actually, when I showed Python or Binary Ninja over here, um, this is actually a generated
Repr.
repr for the core variable object.
Yeah, they're much smarter
Um,
about that.
so it also adds equals and hash operators and not equal,
That lets you
greater than,
use
less
things
than,
in maps.
optionally
That
if
lets
you.
you
What's that?
so that'll let it put things in maps. Like there's been a lot of problems where a
Right,
lot of our objects you couldn't actually use in maps because of that,
right.
and that's now better.
So yeah, and this isn't even like the worst case. There's some where we had just a ton of boilerplate that was just like equal, not equal, greater than equal, less than equal, and it's just like you look at it and it's like, okay, data class would do all of that.
Is this going to be a net negative commit? You think when it lands total lines of code?
It currently is.
Nice.
It's yeah, I think it's currently like 17,000 lines of code r- deleted and 15,000 added.
Yikes.
So
So okay,
it's
here's the question because we've told people 3.0 is for breaking changes. Like 3. In fact, we've
mhm.
already got a it's not breaking, but we have a forward compatibility kind of boundary in our database format, right? So if you make with the latest dev today a BNDB, you can't open that BNDB file in the previous stable. And so anything that happens between essentially now and their next stable release, which we're calling 3.0, this is where we're trying to put all the stuff where there's any potential kind of breakages.
Yeah.
Most of what you showed so far
I've been
is gentle,
really
but yeah,
I've really tried to not break things unless absolutely, like, unless it was like a an issue that one really needed to be broken, or if it was
can you think of a good example
yeah.
of something that is going to change and like which plugin authors
Well,
would
I
it
mean, if
potentially impact?
people were expecting things to come back, if well, no, um,
If you were taking a repr and treating it as a string and
uh,
comparing it
there's a
or
lot
something,
of
that could change.
types.
But
Yeah. I mean, even repers, I tried to keep the same.
yeah,
Um, I went through some effort to keep those repers the same. But let's go back to Binary Ninja. I can show some more cool things. Um, but the I think most of the breaking changes are surrounding like types
Oh, but they're
in
such good
particular,
changes. Yes, the
but they're really good
types were kind of
changes.
bad. There was
We'll
issues.
touch on that too. So uh, this is pretty cool. So uh, get data var at here. So data variables are now also live objects. So they have a name. They didn't have a name before. Well, see if they actually have a name.
Instead of an auto name, yeah.
Boo. Right. An auto name doesn't come up. Maybe I should probably make it automatically do
Yeah, I
that
think
if it
we do that
doesn't.
with functions already.
I
Yeah,
will do that.
yeah.
Um, so it's got a name, and you can say bar change the name. It's got um, a type. It had a type before, but you couldn't set the type to anything. So I can now set it equal to array type dot array
Can that one take a string yet? I like this ones that can take string setters.
type dot. No, not yet. That is the intention.
Yeah.
But it's 18, let's say.
Lowercase array.
Lowercase.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There you go.
now it's 18 instead of 19. And this is the cool one. Value,
Yeah.
right? It returns a byte array. So it returns bytes if it's an array of chars. I should probably, if it's array of chars, I should probably like char them, and so it would just be like
Yeah.
char a for a, and so it would return that instead. Maybe I can just make it a string. But more importantly, something like this, you get an array
That's really
of
nice.
integers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no more using bv.read, calculating the size yourself,
Yeah,
and
that was
also unpacking
super
it.
difficult,
And yeah, it was way more work than it needed to be. That's cool. I haven't seen that feature before.
right? Oh, something I just added. So this is says Sunday sun equals
Ooh,
you can even
that's
write
pretty cute.
the
That's
values.
nice.
So that's doing there. Um,
So you mentioned some of the breaking changes came around working with types.
yeah,
Are there any other like what are the sort of like the general ways um, you would work with types before? I mean, it used to there was like kind of like a little bit of a convoluted workflow to like create a type, add it to the view.
yeah. Um, so when working with types, it's kind of this multi-step process. You first need to like, let's say you want to create a structure. So you first need to create an instance of a structure. You then need to add members to the structure. You then need to register, create a type from the structure, and then you need to register the type with a specific name, right? So it's
That's
like,
the equivalent of like right clicking and choose create struct in the UI, right? And typing something in.
right. So um, we wanted to improve that workflow a lot, and I think we have succeeded at this. So now it's you can do it with these wonderful magic context hand context managers. So with structure dot builder, and you can with BV, and what are we gonna call this? Jordan
Yay.
As S, and we can actually say like line is 1, or I think,
Yeah.
S dot append type dot int 4, and we've got to give it a name.
And the old APIs, do they still work? Like the sort of more convoluted ones?
Yep.
I
I
thought
guess
packed.
packed is not.
Is it just pack?
I've got to.
Yeah.
So, and now we can also just use this same.
Valgrind's excited. They said that so much of their code is making structures, so they're very excited for this.
Yeah. Um, like just that simple, like go in, change the type, even things like auto types, right? With BV dot types dot builder.
So now you're getting a
Oh wait,
new instance of that old type and putting it kind of into this like
yeah,
creation
hang
scope.
on. I'm trying to remember if I made 2 different methods. I think I can just do
We are not C
BV
game mind.
dot
We can put spaces in
builder.
names. It's
Yeah,
one of the reasons we don't produce C for Halo.
yeah.
We can do so much more.
Did I make? I'm trying to remember now how I actually
No
did
worries.
this.
Yeah, I think you haven't touched this part of the code. You were doing other stuff more recently. Any other questions in the chat about APIs or even while Peter's in there, there's things that you want to get looked at or worked on. And so as you mentioned, I mean this is just there's a lot of other stuff that is encompassed with this. The type hints alone um, will like dramatically improve the experience of writing plugins, right? Like it'll really help you both, call in, especially as you do them yourself, and you're also calling into all of our stuff that has the type information. Your the IDE experience is really improved, and then there's been a bunch of just little stuff in the API along the way that he's kind of fixed on the way to it. So hopefully the breakage is minimal, but it just will be a lot more polished and clean, and there's some newer, better ways.
But this doesn't work, but there's a way to modify existing types. Just like
Kind of get a copy of it, and yeah,
yeah, you're able to get a copy of it, modify it, and put it back all in like one step like this. I forget what exactly needs to go in here, but that's what documentation is for, which hasn't been finalized. So
in fact, I think that is a workflow in the current documentations on using the API.
yeah.
And right now, it basically like recommends like parse type from source, and then you can just paste in some
Oh,
stuff. It's one of
yeah.
the
One of the most important things about this, ev.types. Let's okay. This guy, and uh, before, like a structure was not a type object. It was like con, uh, it was containment rather than inheritance. Now it's inheritance. So um, you don't have to like put a structure into a type to be able to register it. You can just, if you have a structure, you can just like register it. If you have a name type reference, it's already a type. If you have an enumeration, it's already a type. So there's none of this like, okay, first it used to be you have to get this and then you do dot structure on it.
Hmm.
And this is one of the thing that broke. You do dot structure. But now structure is actually the way you make a structure,
Yeah,
like
the same way you
all
do a dot
like
array or dot char, dot
dot
whatever. Yeah,
type,
yeah,
or
yeah,
sorry, dot int, dot char.
yeah.
Uh, uh, so this is already a structure, and you got dot members on it, right?
So we got a couple of
Like,
questions in the chat. We're gonna get caught up on
yeah,
real quick. So yeah, Valgrind earlier question said, so wait, I can take and copy and extend an already existing structure. Please say yes. That was
yes,
the documentation failed, but absolutely part of the design goal. Will be documented. Will be a good example because that's one of the workflows we definitely want to enable. I think is the answer there. And then the next
yeah,
question, it was sort of implicit, is when does this land? Because they want it right now.
yeah. So uh, it lands when it's done. Sorry. There's there's like a lot of moving parts right now that I'm trying to like work through in order
Is
to
there a
be able
test
to.
branch that you're testing this on that if people want to
There is a
watch it,
test
or because
branch.
all of our API test
It's
branches are public?
test. It's test underscore type hints, I think. Um, let me try to let me stop presenting and try to find the documentation that I started. Um,
So here is the repo for I've got the stream over on the desktop here. Um, this is the test underscore type ins, right? So you can uh, see Peter's latest commits on here. You could clone it, and would people be able to? I mean, they should be able to use this themselves with their local bills if they want to start experimenting with it, right? They could literally just
yeah, yeah,
replace the current API and try it
yeah.
out.
There's probably some bugs and shit in there. So,
It's yeah.
um,
This is why we have dev. There may be some issues with it, but it's going to be. It will also fix a lot of bugs. On the whole, I expect with especially with the type hints, I expect more fixes than breakage. But it is a lot of
yeah.
changes, so we expect some of that. Joe asks also as well. Uh, how is this going to be like? Do we have a lot more documentation now since there's a lot of APIs that are currently undocumented? And you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my plan is to do a much more thorough job of documenting than we've ever done before as well.
It will
So,
be better. Whether no promises on complete.
yeah,
And I
but
will
if you
say
have things that need that you
the
really want to be documented, then
the biggest so type hints alone in my mind count as documentation, right? Because there were a lot of like arguments for things that were kind of nasty, like
kind
you
of
that
in a way, for some things they do.
I mean, like, well, let me rephrase that. Some of the problems that documentation solves are helped by having type hints, right? That's probably a fair statement
Yes.
because you just see like especially if there's an abbreviation or a small name for a variable and you're like
Value.
yeah, okay,
What is
great, it's a
value?
value.
Like,
What does that mean exactly? So that kind of stuff I think will be improved, even if
yeah,
everything doesn't have a
and
full
I
example.
tried to do named types in a lot of places. So something that was here, I'll share my screen again. Um, Something that I was annoyed by um, myself, so I imagine everyone else was annoyed by this, is we have expression indexes, which are just
Oh yeah,
integers.
yeah,
We have instruction indices, which are integers.
yep.
We have addresses that are integers, um, and
And
all these
instructions
things.
can all have some subset of those, depending on low
Yeah,
level
and you
assembly, high
have low
level,
level
medium
IL
level.
instruction
Yep.
index, which is not, doesn't map to a high level IL instruction index. And so now, like especially if you go to medium level IL, um, you can look for um, uh, high level IL dot uh,
Index. Oh,
uh, Yeah, it's like it's expression index, right? So you see this, um, and we're in medium level IL. So this is a medium level IL instruction index, and it maps to an optional high level IL instruction index. So even if we didn't add documentation to this, if you look at the API and you think about it for a moment, you're like, okay, clearly this is a medium level IL expression index and it maps to a high level IL expression index. Um,
And that was some of the bugs you caught too when
and
you added
it will
that, right?
sometimes fail,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
right? So there, there's failure conditions. So that I think helps out a lot. And we're able to add a lot more checks, and just type hints in Python are just so wonderful.
You're
Who
saying
would have
that
thought
duck
having a
typing
typed
has,
language was
yeah,
helpful?
yeah. Who would have ever predicted that?
Um, yeah, so I think that's about it. Um, there, enumerations work the same way as these do. So yeah, that member or member sub zero, that's an enumeration dot members dot dot what is this?
Does tab completion work
Uh,
through that?
type probably, yeah. And oh yeah, you still have to look up. Um, oh, there was a way, I added a way to do this. Um, and I'm like totally blanking on it. But there's a way, a much easier way to get the target now of a name type reference. Um, so yeah,
I think we need a whole separate stream just on types and name type references and the sort of like
yeah,
working with our. I think once this API lands, I really want to do a stream where it's nothing but us just sort of talking through all of the how you work with types in Binja from a UI
yeah.
perspective, from an
I
API
I started
perspective.
writing I started writing some documentation too, and yeah, I can't find that documentation that I wrote, so I'm a little bit annoyed by that.
Oh,
But
hopefully it's not in a stash somewhere. Any
could be.
questions from chat while we're kind of wrapping up the stream here in a few minutes? Thanks for everybody that hung out with us. Like I said, I'm really excited. I was just looking at the list of features, and actually let's look at that real quick. So if we go back over um, to the GitHub repo, and you actually look at our current milestones, 3.0 is due by October 13th, and uh, we've already got half the issues closed. And if you actually look through this, the number of things that are already done or like in progress or coming in. So this cleanup variables list, this is actually related to, so not the variable view, right, that we have now on the side, but at the top of each function, if you turn on show variable types at top of function, this list right here, there's been some inconsistencies that we've made some improvements, but
The big
there's still
issue
some work
was
to be
that
done.
it was, if you were in high level IL, it showed you like medium level
Yeah,
IL variables, which was
not particularly
dumb.
helpful, right? And so there's been some cleanup that's already happened just in the last week on dev, but I think there's a few more things. That's why this bug is open and tracking it. Let's actually look here and let's see if wait, task lists give feedback. Interesting. That's a new UI element. So did Andrew update this one? Oh no, I get to give him a hard time. So to answer your question, uh, the type libraries are coming forward. Actually, Peter, you kind of know more about this, right? I think it's basically this list right here that's coming, right? All of these platforms and all of these libraries, and maybe more, or is it just those?
There's more than that.
Okay.
But it's basically like, yeah, libstandard C++, well, it's on there, ld.so,
This one, yeah.
yeah,
And again, the other important thing is it's like just I mean even in general just libc for like all of the other
yeah.
architectures is a big
Also,
one too.
it's also
Oh, that's right.
ARM,
Yep.
ARM 64, Thumb, all of those. And we kind of got a nice way of just drop in a new uh, library with symbols and generate a type library. So that's um, not publicly available. Um, there's some internal stuff that we got to deal with, but then probably we can
Oh, I
make it
messed up my last
publicly
bullet.
available.
No. I was gonna ninja edit there and then pretend like it was all fixed, but I did something wrong here. Oh, I think I missed a space. Um, yeah. So to answer your question, um, yes, this is so the tool that Peter's talking about does a bunch of really nifty stuff using I think is that the one that uses the dwarf information to generate it, or Peter, the tool that you were talking about
What's
for
that?
for
Sorry.
generating type libraries, is that the one that uses the dwarf information?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. We're getting dwarf stuff in the core sometime soon. Probably part of 3.0.
Yeah.
So uh yeah, we
Yeah, we may be able to. They're one of the goals. So Andrew is working on this right now. Is this assigned to him? Oh, we should switch. Well, I guess yeah. There's also the Windows ones just tracking this. This issue is kind of a broad issue, but Andrew is the one on the team currently working on these, and he is also interested in specifically kind of like documenting the process and the workflow for creating these. So there should be a better methodology or a couple of methodologies that he'll propose. I'm expecting a blog post out of him at some point for better ways of making type libraries too. Yeah, so because we do want to not only ship a good set but also make it easier for y'all um, to make your own. So yeah, so that one's coming. The stack view, as we mentioned, is I mean it's just there's some final tweaks and stuff, but like it's real close, right?
actually we actually do have an online type library creator that we might be able to like just open up and
Oh yeah, that's right.
like it needs to be updated for the latest version
Yeah,
uh the software of the yeah and then it could be just drag and drop your file here and we'll spit out a type library for you. um
yeah.
but it's web based and you have to like give us your binary, but yeah,
It's another
you're
useful
fine
thing
with
to do
that,
in addition to we are going to improve the
right?
documentation and have the other ways for it too.
Yeah,
But yeah. So yeah, Stack View is well underway. I fully expect that to be done before the next stream, and we'll show that one off. Um, so UI enhancements, Sidebar, it's already landed. Oh yeah, we actually should check that. Um, and being able to show strings and types besides the main views in like the sidebar. Yep, that's also done. So yeah, so the big two other features as a part of this UI enhancement, which this is a massive set of things in this one bug, are the main window refactor, which is not yet done. The way you can see that is the way that the tabs are here up top, but then like the panels and dock widgets to the left are kind of outside of that. And so these like if I switch, that's a great example. When I switch, I lost these panels because the context kind of went away. Or if I do like just a new tab, the panel's closed because there's no data, and it's a little bit like the tabs move around, which can be kind of annoying. Um, and just some other things that makes it a little bit cleaner after we sort of relay out how our kind of main window is working. So if you do custom PySide 6 stuff, inserting into like our Qt layout, that might impact you. Otherwise, all your existing plugins will still work. You should have to do anything. Um, and then which one was, yeah, and that was this last one is really talking about how, again, we mentioned earlier, Peter was talking about these panes where you can split this view and you want to have disassembly and decompilation on the left and right, or in quad, they're going to have a kind of little mini window manager type thing for separate views as opposed
Something
to a
that's
document
nearly
view.
as big is what we're going to do for the bottom widget.
Oh, like
Like,
the log window
because
and
that needs to be turned into a different type of element other than
doc widget.
a dock widget.
Yeah.
So it's going to be,
And there's
it's likely
also
not going to be
the
extended to the left on
yep.
into the sidebar
Yeah,
like
because
it
that does
is
feel
now.
awkward that
Yeah.
really usually your panel will go the whole length of it. And the other one's the mini map too, actually. Or what's it called?
Mini graph.
Mini graph, thank you. Mini
Show.
show mini. What am I? Is it gone? Did I lose? Hold on, I think if I get
Maybe
it
you
here.
need
There
to
we
be
go.
in graph view.
Yeah, it's mini graph. Oh, that could be why. Yeah, maybe it wasn't that command palette might not have shown it because of that. But the mini graph here is, we've been talking about moving this and making it like a floating kind of overlay, more like a game HUD style thing, instead of taking up an entire block here. And you could potentially resize it, but have it be transparent. I think that'll be nice. Oh, that's a great question, Joe. Any chance for a GUI segment editor for 3.0? My
Not for 3.0.
Yeah, my guess is not 3.0. However,
It's kind of on the short list of.
it is, and specifically, I think we have what's Peter is 3.1
It's currently slated for 3.2.
2, right? Yeah. So 3.2 is going to be like the embedded, the firmware release. So it will be within
Well,
the
it's
next like
currently planned, but yeah.
I would be surprised if 3.2 stays as like the embedded release and 3.1 was like the Windows release, right? So then 3.2 I would be surprised if we don't have a GUI editor before 3.2. Because yeah, I agree. Being able to like create visually segments and sections and stuff would be nice. So, but for now, still the JSON. What do you think? So all right, so it's back to the 3.0. So like this one again, this is all like essentially almost done. Variable lists are real small. Type libraries come in probably next week. We should get a lot of those, or all the non Windows ones. UI enhancements are essentially half done. Let's see, single function linear view will also kind of be a part of that UI refactor. So you can look at in the split view, you could have linear for just one particular function instead of the big scrolling one. And then that's a couple of small ones here. Like this one's relatively small. Again, analysis pass is what we're going to call workflows now is a major new feature that's close to getting an early version on dev as well. Is decompile? I haven't actually heard lately. Is there any progress on decompile to see, Peter? You
No.
might know. Okay, so that was not currently underway. Yeah, I think because he's been working on the debugger
Right.
lately. But cough support is well underway, I believe. Keelan's been doing that one.
Yep.
Debugger, we already mentioned, is well underway. They already have a working prototype. Kind of small UI cleanups, and like a lot of this stuff is well underway for that. Yeah, so Joe, that should be beginning of 2022. So it's still 7 months out or 8 months out, but
Let's say mid 2022.
yeah, if we maintain quarterly, October it would be October for 3.0. 3.1 would be January sometime, and then
Well, yeah, more like February.
February. I'm optimistic. I'm always hoping for more, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
we'll see. We'll see
I
how
mean,
it goes.
we've got a month in December, which
When
nothing
nobody's around,
much
so
gets
that
done.
tends to slip a little bit. But hey, Zeros, it kind of already is. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but like I pop open the the console by hitting backtick. It's not animated, but the Quake console key is literally the key that activates the Python console right now. In fact, if you're not even focused in it, and you hit backtick, it focuses the script prompt. So
Yeah.
it
Or
it
control backtick.
yeah. If you're focused in like a text field, you have to use the control version because a regular backtick will get entered like into the filter box, but control backtick will toggle it or focus it if you're already yeah. So one of the two will. But yeah, that's very intentional. I don't think we'll probably ever do the animated version of that, but if somebody else wants to make a fun UI plugin, they could. So. Oh, this is another one that's also underway. The syntax formatting of the API, just to kind of clean up and normalize. We've got source code formatting gonna be applied to everything, both internal and external as well. It's coming. So
We plan to do the BNDB backed by multiple files in the 3.0, in not in the 3.0, in the 3 series of releases.
yeah,
Don't really know when, but that's definitely one that's kind of up there.
yeah, multiple files, container stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the is your is all the stuff you're doing with the API even? It's not really this, is it, or is this just
No, that's like when I'm done doing
you're
that,
just
I'm
gonna
going
make
to
the
run
issue
the
and
auto formatter
yeah.
and then yeah.
You need like a major like or add type hints or clean up API. You need a major thing here to track all the stuff you've been doing because it's a
Yeah.
ton of work that doesn't even show
Yeah.
up on the coming soon list that this
Yep.
sort of represents. But well, cool. All right, Peter, thanks for hanging
Yeah.
out, and everybody else, thanks for joining the stream. It was fun to see folks again. Look forward to seeing y'all in 2 weeks, and like I said, we're gonna have even more stuff, and maybe at some point, if we stop having so many new features, I'll get back into just like using binge on stream or doing some more workflow stuff or more the binary ninja basics. But for now, we keep making things too fast to we gotta show off all the cool stuff. So, and with that, I think we're gonna head out. Everybody enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you in a couple weeks. See ya.
Later.